تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأصلي وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. As we come to the final surah of discussion from Juz Tabarak, the 29th Juz of the Quran, these 11 odd surahs inside this Juz, the final Juz here, surah being Surah Al-Mursalaat, the 77th surah of the Quran. And this by in no means should be a final discussion or a final journey with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, it should be an inspiration, a beginning to become more focused towards reading and studying the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and especially in trying to equip ourselves and to prepare ourselves for the last day. As this surah once again doesn't fall short, but continues that same theme of the last day, whereby finally Yawmul Fasl, the day of separation. Yawmul Fasl is amongst the names of the Day of Judgment, as we mentioned throughout this series, that numerous names are mentioned inside these final two Juz of Juz Tabarak and Juz Amma, primarily in other places inside the Quran, that this is the day of separation between truth and falsehood, between believers and disbelieving individuals, separation between this world and the hereafter world. So, لِيَوْمِ الْفَصْلِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الْفَصْلِ, I will explain to you what this day of judgment is. It's mentioned 3 times inside this surah, and in total the word Yawm al-Fasl is mentioned 6 times inside the Quran. So once again, this surah is giving us the encouragement or warning us about or reminding us about how we were created and the essence of the human being, the change of the heavens and the earth, the coming of the last day, the separation between human beings, between those who done good deeds and those who done bad deeds, and giving us an encouragement about the reward for the believing individuals, and then concluding, giving us a reminder about وَإِذَا قِيلَ مُرْقَعُوا لَا يَرْقَعُونَ. When he said to them, prostrate or bow down, they never bow down. So some of the ulama use this verse, just like we mentioned in previous surahs, about the importance of the prayer, that when they're told to prostrate or bow down, they refuse to bow down, is one interpretation. Others say it means on the Day of Judgment they will not be able to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we can take the apparent meaning is plausible as well, that they, when they're told to bow down, they refuse to bow down inside this dunya. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes this surah by mentioning فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَهُ يُؤْمِنُونَ. So which hadith, which speech are they going to believe in after this? As if to say that this is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're reading, that's been sent down upon you. And if this book doesn't change you, the verses inside this book, the ayat inside this book, the lessons inside this book, the parables inside this book, then we don't know what's going to impact you, because the Quran is the most biggest source of changing an individual to bring them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why many ulama mention, don't read the Quran to come to an end of a surah or to come to the end of something. Read the Quran for reflection, for change. Approach the Quran, as it says itself, hudan lil muttaqeen, guidance for the pious individuals. Come to the Quran to seek guidance, to seek purity, to find tazkiyah, to find a way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open up the understanding of the Quran and guide the individual towards it. Allah mentions, Inna hadha al-Quran yahdi lillati hiya aqwamu. Quran guides to that which is firm, that which is strong, that which is correct, and that will only come via the more the person enters into this Quran. And unfortunately, even inside this surah, it mentions wailun yawma idil lil mukaththibin. It mentions that woe to those individuals who reject the truth, who reject the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this surah of 50 verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats this 10 times inside this surah. So each section becomes a paragraph in itself, that Allah mentions a certain state or certain condition or certain blessing or certain punishment, and then poses this question, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَ إِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, after every single section inside this surah. And this is common inside the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats time and time again to send a message home, whether it be inside Surah Al-Rahman, that we find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these 80 odd verses inside this surah. Allah mentions 35 or 36 occasions, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Near enough, after every single verse, continuously reminding us, so which of the blessings of your Lord will you deny? Another place in the Quran, Surah Al-Qamar, Allah mentioned 4 times inside the 54th chapter of the Quran, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We indeed made the Quran very easy to learn, to understand. Is there not one who will ponder and reflect upon that? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is repeating this again through the Quran, because the human being, al-insan, as some ulama mention, is kathratun nisyan, is full of excessive forgetfulness. That's why he's been given the title of being called al-insan, the one who forgets excessively. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes these continuous reminders. وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And the ones who will benefit by this continuous reminder are the believing individuals, that this continuous reminder, it awakens them and reminds them on that journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Surah Al-Mursalaat, the final surah inside Juz Tabarak, as we mentioned, is a complete Meccan surah. Once again, as we mentioned, that all the surahs inside Juz Tabarak are Meccan in nature. A slight discussion about Surah Al-Insan, as we mentioned, whether it be a Medinan surah, some ulama mentioned, but the majority view is a Meccan surah. And likewise in Juz Amma, predominantly the 37 surahs are Meccan in nature, except for we find Surah Al-Bayyinah, if my memory serves me correct, and Surah Al-Nasr are the 2 main surahs. There may be one other surah that is classified as a Medinan surah, but the bulk of the Quran, as we know from the 114 surahs which have been revealed, a good 85 or 86 surahs are Meccan in nature. And as we mentioned, the main theme of the Meccan surahs is belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the human being, al-ba'th wa nushur, resurrection, being brought forth in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the last day, paradise, hellfire is the main theme inside these surahs. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins in the surah by mentioning wal-mursalati urfa, via speaking about wal-mursalat, and here ulama begin to maybe slightly differ upon what does mursalat refer to. Some go to the view that it refers to the angels, some go to the view it refers to the wind, and some go to the view it refers to the prophets who come with the message. Ibn Kathir inside his Tafseer goes to the view that al-adhar huwa al-rih, that the most strongest or more apparent meaning of this word wal-mursalat is speaking about the wind as it brings the rain or it scatters the seeds, etc. upon the land, is a view. And others say it's plausible to be whether it be the wind or it be the angels, are both plausible, because one brings richness, enriches the earth and the soil, and the other enriches the soul. So both can be plausible of coming down upon this earth. Also, I forgot to mention, Surah Al-Mursalat is one of those surahs that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about this surah when he was asked this question by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that why your hair becomes so grey. And inside those narrations, it mentions amongst the surahs which has made my hair become grey, amongst it mentions Surah Hud, Surah Al-Waqi'ah, it mentions Surah Al-Mursalat, and Surah Amma Yatasa'alun, or Surah Al-Naba, and Surah Al-Takwir, etc. are mentioned inside these narrations, because these surahs are speaking about the last day. So that fear of the last day, that worry of the last day, that thought of the last day has made the hair of the Prophet, his hair turn grey, to be worried about that preparation for the last day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned here, وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا, and why the winds, as they're coming forcefully, as we mentioned, they come upon the face of this earth, وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا, that are spreading the rain upon this earth, فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا, and those that are making the distinction. So here we find that the ulama have gone to review, this is referring to the angels, فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا, and highlighting the remembrance to you, عُذْرًا أو نُذْرًا, so you have no excuse. There's no excuses that you can present on that day. إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ. All this is a build-up of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to discuss or speak about. إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ. That which we have promised to you, لَوَاقِعٌ, is a reality, as Ibn Kathir mentions, كَاهِن لَا مَحَالَةَ لَهَا, that this is a reality that's going to take place. The coming of al-waqi'ah, the reality, just like Surah Al-Waqi'ah is a derivative form of al-waqi', the reality. The 56th chapter of the Quran speaking about the last day. فَإِذَا النُّجُومُ طُمِسَتْ. When the stars, when they lose their light is taken away from the stars. وَإِذَا السَّمَاءُ فُرِجَتْ. And the heavens are split open. وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ نُصِفَتْ. And the mountains are taken away or turned into dust once again. وَإِذَا الرُّسُلُ أُقِّتَتْ, and the messengers, أُقِّتَتْ بمعنى جُمِعَتْ, when the messengers are brought together. So all this is a depiction of the last day, or the preparation, the last day, changing of the heavens and earth, and the messengers are brought forth, as Allah mentions inside Surah Al-Ma'idah, يَوْمَ يَجْمَعُ اللَّهُ الرُّسُلَ, on that day when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring the messengers together. Also inside Surah Al-Zumar as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about bringing the messengers, wa shuhada, bring out the martyrs, bring them out on that day, and asking them these questions will be posed to even the messengers on that day. لِأَيِّ يَوْمٍ أُجِّلَتْ, why is this day been hastened, or why have we been collected on this day? لِيَوْمِ الْفَصْلِ, the day of separation. As we mentioned, a day of separation between al-haq wal-batil, between truth and falsehood, a day of separation between people of paradise and the people of hellfire. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الْفَصْلِ, what will explain to you what the day of separation is. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, woe upon those individuals who reject the truth or reject this. So as we mentioned, that this is mentioned 10 times inside this surah. After each paragraph, this question is posed. Waylun, the general meaning that ulama Ibn Kathir mentions, waylun is a form of destruction. Woe to those individuals who are rejecting the truth. Other ulama mention that waylun means wadin fi jahannam, is a valley inside Jahannam, is the punishment given to those individuals. But Ibn Kathir, he rejects this view that here waylun doesn't mean a valley inside Jahannam. But what can be safely concluded, whenever Allah mentioned the word waylun, woe to those individuals, one should pay attention to those verses, or the punishment that could come by carrying out those actions. Allah says, waylun lil musallin, woe to those individuals who are offering their prayer, those who are laxical or lazy about their prayers. For waylun lil mushrikeen, woe towards the polytheists and the actions that they carry out, meaning that what comes after is going to be severe punishment for those individuals who are carrying out those specific actions. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. As we mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah of 50 verses mentioned this on 10 separate occasions inside this surah. After every few verses, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds or gives this severe warning, woe to those individuals on that day who reject the truth, or those who are the rejectors. The punishment awaits those individuals. Then Allah begins to describe once again the human being, which has been common theme inside these few previous surahs, where the previous surah, Surah Al-Insan, where it spoke about the human being and the creation of the human being, and that same theme of the creation of the essence of the human being continues inside Surah Al-Mursalaat. Alam nuhlikil awwaleen, Allah mentioned, did we not destroy the people who came in the past? ثُمَّ نُتْبِعُهُمُ الْآخِرِينَ, and we're going to bring out a new generation after them. كَذَلِكَ نَفْعَلُ بِالْمُجْرِمِينَ, that this is the way that we destroy the criminal individuals. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, woe upon those individuals on that day who reject the truth. أَلَمْ نَخْلُقكُم مِّن مَّاءٍ مَّهِينٍ, did we not create you from the despicable water? So as we mentioned, going back to describing the essence of the human being, فَجَعَلْنَاهُ فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ, and we placed him inside a comfortable, in a good location. We placed him there, ila, meaning the womb of the mother, ila qadarin ma'lum, to a appointed time span placed there. فَقَدَرْنَا فَنِعْمَ الْقَادِرُونَ, and we have destined, or we prepared a set time, and we're the best of the planners of placing that time, or that of that delivery of that individual. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, woe to those individuals that day who are the rejectors. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ كِفَاتًا, have we not made the earth as a receptacle, as a location of residing upon this earth, أَحْيَاءً وَأَمْوَاتًا, for the living and the dead? And here ulama begin to describe what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mean by the earth for the living and the dead. One meaning is quite apparent, that we live upon this earth, and then we're going to be buried upon this earth. We find the earth is للدور والقصور, is for homes. Dur is the plural of dar, and qusur for palaces and residing. And the earth is at the same time qubur, is also a grave as well. So it is a receptacle, the apparent and the hidden. You will reside upon the earth, and at the same time you will be brought back forth into the earth as well, or you bury your dead in this earth as well. وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ شَامِخَاتٍ, and we made, rawasi is the mountains, شَامِخَاتٍ, powerful mountains on the face of the earth. وَأَسْقَيْنَاكُمْ مَاءً فُرَاطًا, and we've given you the pure water or the pure drink has been given to you. And this is another proof of the similarity between this surah, or the common theme that existed in the previous surah and inside this surah. Inside the previous surah, Surah Al-Insan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about the different types of drink: kafura, zanjabila, sabila, sharaban tahura is mentioned here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions ma'an furata is mentioned here, and likewise you find drinks of kulu washrabu, eat and drink, any inside paradise has been granted inside this surah. So there's similarity in the theme of paradise is mentioned inside both of these surahs. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, woe to those individuals who reject the last day, or don't believe or deny or belie the last day. انطلقوا إلى ما كنتم به تكذبون, and be brought forth to that day in regarding that which you used to reject. So the last day is an establishment to those individuals who rejected, that everything they rejected about the last day will be now played forth in front of them, that they have no excuses to present in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. انطلقوا إلى ظل ذي ثلاث شعب, go forth to that day whereby there will be three columns or shadows placed upon the individual. لا ظليل ولا يغني من اللهب, there will be no shade on that day, and there will be no escaping from the fire or the punishment of the flames on that day. And the punishment of the flames on that day, Allah describes it as إنها ترمي بشرر كالقصر, that it sparks. كالحصون is like a fort, it's like a great big castle. That's how the size of the sparks will be of Jahannam on that day. That shows the magnitude. وَجِيءَ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِجَهَنَّمْ, on that day, how Jahannam will be brought on that day. كَأَنَّهُ جِمَالَةٌ صُفْرٌ, as if it is any great big camels. These sparks which are flying are great big camels which are flying on the day of judgment, you find, which is description of Jahannam. And sometimes a person may ask the question that how can this small human being be facing such an immense torment and a punishment on the day? And ulama have described that the magnitude of the human being will be multiplied to go back to its original format, so the punishment will be equal to the size of the human being, and a severe punishment will be granted to the human being on that day. Or because of the disbelief that the human being has done, such a severe punishment is highlighted for the individual. And all this depiction of the punishment should make the individual become wary, become worried about not entering that punishment and try to save themselves from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, woe to those individuals on that day who reject the truth, or those individuals that deny us. هَذَا يَوْمُ لَا يَنْطِقُونَ, this is a day that no individual will be able to speak. As Allah mentions inside Surah Al-Naba as well, Allah mentions that they will not be able to speak إِلَّا مَنْ أَدِلَهُ الرَّحْمَنُ وَقَالَ صَوَابًا, that on that day no one will be able to speak except for whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows to speak on that day. And also we find that on that day, if we don't speak, even our bodily parts will begin to testify against us. As Allah mentions in the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the bodily parts speak and testify against us on that day. وَلَا يُؤْذَنُ لَهُمْ فَيَعْتَذِرُونَ, and no excuse will be, no permission will be granted to them. فَيَعْتَذِرُونَ, and no excuse will be given to them. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, woe to those individuals will take place to them on that day of the rejectors of the last day. هَذَا يَوْمُ الْفَصْلِ جَمَعْنَاكُمُ الْأَوَّلِينَ, this is the day of Yawm al-Fasl, the day of separation. As we mentioned, Allah mentioned Yawm al-Fasl 3 times inside this surah itself, to highlight this the meaning of the last day, one of the names of the last day. هَذَا يَوْمُ الْفَصْلِ جَمَعْنَاكُمُ الْأَوَّلِينَ, this is whereby we gather the first of you and the last of you. That's why the last day is known as Al-Hashr, the gathering, just like inside Surah Al-Hashr, the 59th chapter of Quran, where the whole of creation will be brought forth in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some ulama mentioned that the Hashr, the Mahshar, the gathering will be just like everybody gathers on the day of Arafah or the days of Hajj, how the human being, the human race or the Muslim race is all there. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gather all of human beings in front of him on that day subhanahu wa ta'ala. Woe to those individuals. فَإِنْ كَانَ لَكُمْ كَيْدٌ فَكِيدُونَ, and if you're trying to able to plot or plan or bring any excuses, then do so. And this is a khitab inside the Quran, a speech inside the Quran, which is common for those individuals who try to challenge or reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if you have the ability, that you feel that you're powerful, you're intelligent, or you're able to escape from the punishment or rescue yourself from the punishment, or you have a plan, or you can plot or do something, then Allah is saying, go bring your plans, bring your plots, do what you can on that day. And we know that those plans and those plots inside this dunya and more so inside the akhirah will be futile. The individual is not able to do anything. But this is a form of rebuking, a speech in the Quran which is rebuking the individual. As Allah says to the individual, ذُقْ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْكَرِيمُ. Allah says to the individual inside Jahannam, taste. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْكَرِيمُ. That you thought you was almighty and a noble and a special individual. So this is a form of degrading the individual by saying, what is there to eat and drink inside Jahannam? But there's nothing but punishment. So Allah is now rebuking the individual, is demeaning the individual that this is what you deserve is going to be given to you because you thought you was Al-Aziz, Al-Karim, you thought you was almighty and noble and to be respected on this dunya, but rather this is what you deserve is given to you inside Al-Akhirah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then mentions the reward of the pious individuals. And we said that this is Yawmul Fasl, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions sometimes the punishment first, then the reward, or sometimes the reward first, then the punishment. Is common inside the Quran. Whether we look at Surah Al-A'raf, the 7th chapter of the Quran, we find this distinction between the people of paradise and the people of hellfire. Also inside Surah Hud as well, we find description people of paradise, people of hellfire, and inside other places inside the Quran, that Allah begins to make a distinction between the people. Fariqun fil Jannah wa fariqun fil Sa'ir. A group of people inside paradise, a group of people inside the hellfire. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again gives us this encouragement, just like the previous surah, Surah Al-Insan, whereby we said many verses speaking about the reward of paradise for the believing individuals. Allah concludes the surah by mentioning, إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي ظِلَالٍ وَعُيُونٍ. Indeed, the pious individuals will be in shades and will be with uyun, which are the springs, the plural of ayn, which is the springs. They'll be inside paradise, just like the gardens and the rivers. وَفَوَاكِهَ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ. And they will have fruits or whatever they desire. And as we mentioned in the previous surah, that the soul will have whatever it desires for, that the wrongful desires that we wanted inside this dunya will become rightful desires, and rightful reward will be given to the individual inside the akhirah. And those desires won't be temptations inside the akhirah, they will be a due reward in a better format that we can ever imagine. Just we mentioned desire that some people may have of wine, etc., which intoxicates the mind and harms the individual, that desire will become a good desire in the sense that the drink will become pure, and all the rest of the temptations that exist inside this dunya will become pure inside the akhirah. As Allah mentions at the beginning of Surah Al-Imran, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ وَالْقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ وَالْخَيْلِ الْمُسَوَّمَةِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ وَالْحَرْثِ ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Allah begins Surah Al-Imran by speaking about زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ, the things that the person has a beauty, a likening to, a greed towards, is towards women, towards children, towards wealth, property, gold, silver, branded horses, land. These are the things that the person wants to acquire inside this dunya. And sometimes those things are halal, sometimes those things are haram. Sometimes a person may use haram means to get to them. Person may go beyond the restrictions or the limitations. So all those things that a person may have desired inside his dunya will be granted to the individual inside al-akhirah without the repercussions, because all these elements will be pure. And the greatest blessing inside paradise will be the concept of contentment and peace, and the ghil, the rancor, is removed from people when they enter into paradise. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those individuals. إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي ظِلَالٍ وَعُيُونٍ. Indeed, the pious individuals will be under the shades and be surrounded by the springs of water around them. As Ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayhi mentions in his Tafseer, that this is going to be the reward for those individuals of what they persevered, what they carried out upon this dunya. This is the reward or the return that will be given to these individuals on Yawm al-Fasl. We grant to these individuals of paradise, will be granted to those pious individuals who held fast to al-wajibat, held fast to obligatory actions and stayed away from an-nawahi, the prohibitions, or those commandments in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to stay away from. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them, this reward is given to them, وَفَوَاكِهَ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ. And they will have whatever of the fruits that their desire is granted to these individuals, just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned inside Surah Fussilat. Allah mentioned about the believing individuals, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَبْشِرُوا بِالْجَنَّةِ الَّتِي كُنْتُمْ تُوعَدُونَ نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي الأنفس ولكم فيها ما تدعون. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant the believing individuals, say, our Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they remain steadfast upon that. For them, there's no fear, no grief upon those individuals. Angels come and greet them and give these salutations to them. They will have whatever they want inside paradise will be granted to those individuals. So this is the reward that whereby the soul, whatever it desired inside this dunya, will be rightfully, as we mentioned, granted to the believing individuals or the pious individuals inside paradise. Kulu washrabu hani'an bima kuntum ta'malun. And some ulama tafsir mentioned kulu washrabu hani'an as a form of comfortability, of praise and comfortably, that now you inside paradise, that you can eat and drink and relax and enjoy your life. As we know that, yes, we may enjoy a life to a certain degree inside this world, but as many ulama have mentioned, la raha illa fil qabr. There's no rest for the individual except for when they hit the grave, which sounds very strange. That how can a person say that there's going to be rest inside the grave? Because for some individuals who are the pious individuals, in the continuous obstacles or the continuous tests or continuous trials and tribulations and hardships, or even لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ, the general toil and turmoil of the human being, how it's been created, or the life commitments on this world of the human being, of work, of family, etc. I find there's all elements of continuous hardship, and sometimes the person doesn't really find that real rest that they're searching for. So here, la raha illa fil qabr, the rest will come for the individual when they hit the grave. And as we mentioned, that the grave is the beginning of the day of judgment. That's the first station of the day of judgment. The rest of it is kalamhil basar, is like the blinking of an eye, or huwa aqrabu, even far quicker than that. So a person could have died 50,000 years ago or 1,000 years ago. When they're resurrected, they'll say, I remained for a day or part of a day, just or like a blinking of an eye. This time has passed by. So on that, the inside paradise, it will be said to the believing individuals, Kulu washrabu hani'an bima kuntum ta'malun. Eat comfortably, eat and drink. And here comes once again the hidden message, bima kuntum ta'malun, because of what you used to do. Meaning that dunya is a place of amal. The dunya is a place of action, and al-Jannah is the garden of reaping your fruits. Because even Jannah carries the meaning of a garden, of thick gardens. So the fruits of Jannah, you're planting them inside this dunya. You don't pluck them inside the dunya, you pluck them inside al-akhirah, inside paradise. You'll see the fruits of the actions that we carried out inside this dunya. So kulu washrabu hani'an bima kuntum ta'malun inna kadhalika najzil muhsinin. And thus we do reward the doers of good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never lets the actions of the doers of good go to waste. Whatever actions that we do, they will never be wasted in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though as human beings, sometimes, as we mentioned, we do feel due praise or respect or recognition is not given to an individual inside this dunya. Maybe sometimes our rights are taken away from us, our wealth is taken away from us, our honor is taken away from us. So as human beings, we all share those elements inside our life. But if that does happen, and it will happen to the individual, the Quran is comforting us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us that peace and that promise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, la yukhlifu Allahu al-mi'ad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never goes against his promise. If he's promised that this is what he will grant the believers, if he promised that he will give this in return, if he's promised that this will be the reward, then he will grant that to whatever he's promised to that individual. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions for that day, inna kadhalika najzil muhsinin. Thus do we reward the doers of good, the muhsinun individuals. Then Allah mentions, wailun yawma idil lil mukaththibin. Woe on that day to those individuals who belie or reject the truth, reject the Quran, reject the messenger, reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Woe to those individuals, meaning now you're going to find out what is the repercussions of your rejection of the Quran, your rejection of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, your rejection of Islam, your rejection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we mentioned, that this comes at least 10 times inside this surah full of 50 verses. So as it is a continuous reminder after each paragraph, each section, for those individuals who are ungrateful or belying or rejecting this Quran or rejecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Kulu wa tamatta'u qalilan innakum mujrimun. Then it said to the disbelieving individuals, Kulu wa tamatta'u, eat and enjoy yourself qalilan, for a short time. Once again, this is ayatul tawbih or zajr. This is a form of degrading these individuals that eat and drink for a small time. Or even if we take it literally, eat and drink for a short time on this dunya. How long is a time span of a human being? As prophesied by the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that the average age of a person on this earth will be bayna sittin wa sab'in, is between 60 and 70 years. Yes, some people may die earlier, some people may die later, but if you take the average of the lifespan of a human being is between 60 and 70 years. And if you study those 60 or 70 years, how much of that time span is spent sleeping, how much of that time is spent in mundane affairs of even going to the bathroom and washing and bathing oneself, how much time is spent eating, how much time is spent traveling, etc. And some scientists or people specialized in the field of time have studied it and said from a span of 60 to 70 years, good maybe 7-8 years of your life is spent sleeping and a good few years eating and drinking. So you're only left with possibly maybe 10 years of actions to do, because some good span of your life under the age of puberty you're not responsible for. So you don't have much time on this dunya if we really think about it deeply, or how much time we have to try to do good actions inside this dunya upon the face of this earth. So kulu wa tamatta'u qalilan, eat and rejoice for a short span, because really your space on this dunya is a small span of time. Kulu wa tamatta'u qalilan innakum mujrimun. That this small dunya that you have, and the end result, you're going to be mujrimun. As far as that we are concerned on the final day, that you are criminals and your due punishment given to you inside al-akhirah. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. And once again, woe upon those individuals who reject or belie the final day. وَإِذَا قِيلَ مُرْكَعُوا لَا يَرْكَعُونَ. And we said to them, prostrate, to bow down. They're not able to bow down. As we mentioned, whether that could be interpretation on the last day, when they're told to bow down in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, won't be able to do so. But as we mentioned, the other meaning is highly plausible, that inside this dunya, and this is the view that Imam Sa'di inside his Tafseer he goes to, that inside this dunya, when they're told to bow down, prostrate, meaning to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, la yarka'un, they don't bow down, they don't submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah uses this inside the Quran, warka'u ma'ar raki'in, and bow down with those individuals who are bowing down, is also the side point approved to try to pray inside congregation, submit with the believers and pray together. So inside this dunya, if we never prayed inside this dunya, again comes a severe warning that this is a symbol of a person who abandons the prayer, doesn't pray, is going to be heading towards Jahannam. And even though we concluded that the companions were all in unanimous agreement, a person doesn't pray is to be classified as a disbeliever. But as a side point, as a disclaimer, we should be very careful to go and now say to another Muslim that you're a disbeliever because you don't offer the prayer, you're not praying 5 times a day. It's not for us to do that. Our task is just to remind ourselves the severity of a person who abandons the prayer. That would be for a fully qualified scholar or a person in a position of authority to now classify this individual to be a disbeliever. The most that we can say that this person is in a very, very dangerous situation of a person who's not praying 5 times a day, according to numerous texts that we mentioned throughout Juz Tabarak, of continuously highlighting about the abandoning of the prayer, is a symbol of the person end up going into Jahannam. Then Allah mentions for the 10th time, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, woe on that day to the individual, or those individuals who belie or reject the last day. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes the surah by mentioning فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَهُ يُؤْمِنُونَ. So what speech will they believe in after this? So all the speech of the Quran, if the Quran is, as Ibn Kathir himself highlights in his tafsir, that if the Quran doesn't move you, doesn't change you, then we don't know what will change you inside your lives. Another place in the Quran, Allah mentioned فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. So which of the speech or the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will they believe in, will they not believe in? So meaning that the Quran, it moves an individual towards belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if these ayat reminding us about the last day haven't moved us, whether it be a physical moving in our mind and our soul, spiritually awakening ourselves that a time has come now for me to move from that transition of just reading about the last day, knowing about the last day, because unfortunately many Muslims do read about the last day or read about the signs of the last day, meaning the final 10 signs of the last day, the Armageddon, Ad-Dajjal, Ad-Dabba, what will take place in the last day. These are all interesting subjects and many Muslims read about them, which is good that we should do that. But what is the core inner meaning of reading about the last day and knowing about the last day is to move us to practice that inside our lives so we can be protected from the punishment of the last day. And that has been the key message that we've been trying to instill within ourselves. وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and remind, indeed the reminder benefits the believers, and we're all going to fall short. We shouldn't fret, we shouldn't despair. We should know that إِنَّ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ مِّنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Indeed, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is close by to those individuals, to those who are the muhsinun, trying their best to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the best way to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is via the book and the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq and ability to live true to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to implement them to the best of our ability inside this dunya and inside the akhirah, to make the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to become an evidence for us and not an evidence against us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite us once again to travel through the speech of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, another series of speaking about His words. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولجميع المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.
تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير.